Now look, I have a couple of questions for you. Is the use of artificial intelligence within the creative industry the end of creativity as a whole? Is it the harbinger of death for all creatives, and are we then doomed to exist in a world full of AI slop? Or could it be that we're simply standing in front of a new type of brush that we don't quite understand yet, and that is what actually scares us? Nowadays, there is a widespread fear that these tools are here to replace creatives, or even worse, that those who use them are actually cheating somehow. However, if we look at the history of art and technology, this wave of panic, while totally understandable, is not actually something new. So it is because of all these kind of ideas, and also the fact that I've been using these tools for the past, 5 years, I would dare to say that far from erasing professionals, AI tools are giving us all the opportunity to raise the floor of what tools can achieve, while simultaneously reaffirming the intrinsic value that the human vision behind their use really has. I think that in order to truly understand this properly, we need to first demystify in some way the idea of originality. Because there seems to be this romantic notion out there that artists create their works from nothing, when the truth is that no person lives in a bubble disconnected from the outside world and from the previous works of other artists. And those very works are what naturally inspire us when we start developing some aptitude or type of art on our own. For example, when I was a kid and learning to draw, I didn't set out to reinvent the wheel. I just spent hours drawing SpongeBob, and naturally and progressively, I developed my skills over the years. I am not saying that I am incredible at drawing now either. Let's just say I can express an idea. Good enough. Machine learning, which is what these algorithms behind these AI tools are actually called. These algorithms trained by analyzing patterns in an immense database that is actually composed of the same pop culture to which we ourselves have access to. And they do that in order to later learn how to create their own images and videos. Sound familiar? So if we accept that a human work is a sort of remix or just an overall collage of different influences from other artists, in that case, we have to accept that originality lies in the personal taste of the person or artist who is making that mix or remix of his own. Now, I understand that legally there are a lot of debates going on about how these data sets are compiled and about how the artist should actually consent in some way to their work being used, and all of that matters because we are talking about multi-million-dollar companies who are charging us users to use these tools. But conceptually, what these AI tools do in order to learn looks quite a lot like what we do, doesn't it? So, understanding all of that, how is it possible that clients are replacing creative professionals with these AI tools? Well, let's try to understand this terrible dynamic by looking at the historical context of the creative industry, because this whole thing has happened before. Every time that a new technology has facilitated a process that was previously manual and took a lot of time, criticism has quickly arisen from the public regarding the validity of the effort of the creatives who decide to use these new tools. For example, think about Photoshop. Before it existed, photo and video design and retouching required physically cutting and pasting, scratching negatives, painting frames, exposing images in pieces, and all sorts of analog magic tricks. It was a slow process that was incredibly meticulous, but also impossibly beautiful. I assure you that if Instagram had existed before Photoshop somehow, then we would have seen incredible analog edits of photos and videos in our feeds. And then later, when Photoshop was released into the market, it would have been received naturally with screams that it was coming to steal professionals' jobs. And let me make this clear, this was not an unfounded fear. This was the reality that creative professionals were going through back when the digital special effects revolution started happening. One very famous example is Phil Tippett, who was a stop-motion special effects artist who was selected by Steven Spielberg to make the dinosaurs in his brand new movie. It's a little movie, you may have heard of it. It's called Jurassic Park. However, during the special effects testing process, Spielberg saw what digital professionals could do with the new technology, and he was absolutely marveled by the result. So Phil Tippett was officially replaced.
And there we were watching our future unfolding on the TV screen. So authentic, I couldn't believe my eyes. And it blew my mind again. And I turned to Phil, and Phil looked at me, and Phil said, I think I'm extinct.
But Tippett didn't let himself be defeated by this new emerging technology. In fact, he even went as far as helping the digital artists design new tools that would allow him and his stop-motion crew to use their animation knowledge in order to animate the dinosaurs inside the computers. This way, he could keep not only his talent and his people, but also his vision and his craft. So now we extrapolate this story to today. Nowadays, no one questions the value of any professional who uses digital tools like Photoshop, After Effects, or CapCut in their workflow. Well, you see, AI is the current version of that very transition. We are currently moving from older, well-known tools to newer ones that can exponentially raise the productivity of creatives. It is no surprise to anyone that in the professional creative market, where clients have always asked for results for yesterday, creative professionals are constantly having to find ways to minimize the time they spend on the technical aspects of the job, so that they can focus on the creative result. And all of this, of course, without becoming a hack who delivers just generic work in order to, get it done. And well, this endless marathon from the side of the creatives in the creative industry has always been a thing. And unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna change anytime soon. We just have to keep on adapting. All right, so why is it that people believe that anyone using AI tools is intrinsically a hack? Well, here it is very important that we talk about a specific misunderstanding that people have. When you work with AI tools in a professional workflow, you don't just type a prompt on your keyboard and then hit generate. Because any creative professional who has a clear vision or idea of what they want to achieve will have to learn how to use these tools enough so that they can use them in a manipulative way and not just a generative one. Just as I have had to do, they will probably have to learn how to use these tools within their already existing workflow in order to, for example, make specific changes to an image, knowing and applying techniques like in-painting, text-to-video, image-to-video, and really getting to know them in order to apply whatever is necessary for the right task. But then a professional creative would actually take those results and bring them into traditional software like Photoshop or After Effects in order to refine it and get it to the level of quality that actually needs to be presented. It is because of this that there will always be a giant technical gap between the casual user and the expert, just like with any other creative work. Now, some detractors argue that the danger of AI lies in that, much like Chef Gusteau said in Ratatouille,
"What do I always say? Anyone can cook."
But that phrase also hides a classic fallacy. What people forget is that while everyone certainly can learn, not everybody will learn. But those who are willing, the more they study and practice, the better they will get at it, and their work will naturally rise above the rest in terms of quality. Well, with AI tools, it is exactly the same. Because sure, it can generate an image, yeah, but it cannot judge its aesthetics or if it makes sense within the context of the entire piece and the vision of the person that's actually trying to get the image to be a part of a bigger picture in their mind. You know what I mean? And all of this is seen very clearly in the fact that if you hand these tools to somebody who just wants to play with them, then you tend to get results that kind of look like this. Whereas if you give these tools to an expert, you can get stuff that looks like this.
¡Apunten, soldados! ¡Hacia esa puntilla!
Look, the internet right now is full of deformed, badly made, and just really shitty AI content that we all call AI slop. And we all know what it looks like. But then, what does quality AI work look like? Well, I would argue that it needs the same things I would consider for any kind of creative work. Behind the work, there must be a human, experienced with the tool and with a clear intention, who understands things like maybe anatomy, lighting, composition, and certainly the small nuances that one must look for in order to guide, correct, and curate the results, thus making the tool work in favor of their vision and not against it. Some people believe that this is the magic bullet, the perfect reason to get rid of creative professionals. But what they're missing at this point, and they will have to remember at some point, is that it's those very creative professionals that are needed more than ever right now. Not just in order to create good work, but also in order to help these tools improve so they can keep getting better and better. But in order to achieve this, creative professionals must use these tools in their arsenal so that together with their talent and their knowledge, they can continue creating and being competitive in an industry that only moves forward and that will leave them behind if they don't get on board. I get it. Things look complex right now with all the news of layoffs in the creative industry and with all the AI slop content that is flooding our social medias. But these are all classic symptoms of when a revolutionary technology is entering the creative industry. I obviously don't know what the future holds for sure, but I am hopeful that just like before, the industry will eventually understand this undeniable reality and we will be able to start normalizing this new technology. At least enough so that we stop talking about things made by artificial intelligence and we start referring to them the right way, made with artificial intelligence. Maybe at that moment we can also start making the flesh and blood people behind these AI creations visible, and we keep holding people responsible for what they create. And maybe then we'll also find the proper legal frameworks in order to make the people who will and are abusing these technologies stop. But honestly, that is a conversation for a whole other video. While the fear of AI tools entering the creative field is certainly understandable, I think it all loses a bit of its weight when we sort of put it into historical context like we have, and also when we look at how the creative professionals are actually using these tools in their workflows. At least, I hope it does. So, to recap, originality has always been a collective construct. Efficiency tools are necessary for the industry, and the machine, however powerful it may be, is blind without human guidance. Just like any brush without a painter. If you take anything away from this video essay, I hope it's this. At the end of the day, just like with any tool, whether it be technological or analog, a brush in the hands of a novice painter might give you a nice painting sometimes, but that same brush in the hands of an experienced painter will give you a human vision made reality every single time.